Hi, this tutorial covers quota sampling. Now, before we get into this too far, I do want to note that quota sampling is not an ideal method of sampling. It is one that is commonly used, but again, it should be avoided if possible. So, to choose a quota sample, the first thing you're going to do is divide the population into strata. Strata are groups of individuals that are similar or homogeneous in some way that is important to the response. Okay, after your population is split up, then you are going to choose a separate sample from each stratum, stratum being the singular of strata. Now, this does not have to be a random sample. Okay, then the last thing is you're going to combine these samples from step 2 to form your quota sample. Okay, quota sampling is very similar to stratified random sampling, but with one exception. The samples from each stratum do not need to be random samples. Okay, so as I said before, whenever possible, you want to try to do stratified random sampling, but quota sampling is sometimes used when stratified random sampling isn't possible. So again, stratified random sample is preferable to quota sampling. Okay, so let's take a look at an example where quota sampling can be used. So suppose a researcher is interested in the shopping preferences of consumers at a local mall. Since he believes men and women have different preferences, the researcher decides to stratify the population by gender. Okay, it's important that whatever you stratify by, so when he decided to stratify by gender, he did that because he believed that it was important to the response being whatever shopping preferences we're measuring. So from past data, he knows that roughly 60% of mall shoppers are female. He wants to sample he wants a sample of size 200. To get a proportional sample, he decides to sample 120 females and 80 males. Okay, 120 being 60% of your sample size of 200. Okay, and then 80% being 40% of the sample size. To save time, he posts a sign in the mall to solicit volunteers. He includes 120 female volunteers and 80 male volunteers from his sample. Okay, so again, to save time, because quota sampling is easier than stratified random sampling, he just includes volunteers instead of getting random sampling. Okay, so is this sampling method quota or stratified random sampling? Well, of course, it is quota sampling because we did not take a random sample. So quota sample is quicker and easier than obtaining stratified random sampling. It is also useful when when access to an entire population is unavailable. Okay, so you can use quota sampling kind of as a last resort when your population isn't unavailable or when you're constrained by time. But quota sampling is non-random, so it is subject to bias. So some bias can certainly creep in there if you're taking volunteers as part of your non-random sample. So again, just a word of warning, try to use stratified random sampling whenever possible, but quota sampling is another option, but again, not ideal. So this has been your tutorial on quota sampling. Thanks for watching.